Hello everyone, we had a little bit of trouble recording our guest this week, so the sound quality is not great on her parts. We'll try to do better in the future. And now for our reading. From Eric by Terry Pratchett. There's a door. Where does it go? It stays where it is, I think.
Hey, all you cool ruffian cats and kittens, and welcome to episode 15 of the Reading Room Ruffians, your favorite library podcast. We discuss books, tell you about upcoming programs, and throw a few guest speakers in for some flavor. We are coming to you from our public library in Jackson County, West Virginia. This is Mallory, your favorite cinnamon roll of darkness, and I'm joined by my BFF Ariel, the prettiest field of poisonous flowers you'll ever look upon.
I am both beautiful and deadly.
Our supreme overlord, Carla.
Who am I working with?
And coming in hot from Seattle, Washington, we have everyone's favorite West Coast wizard, Zach.
Hello, all my little patronauts. How do you guys come up with these ridiculous titles?
It's me. It's my brain.
We're also joined by a guest today. We're joined by Ange Kaluk from Ballard, West Virginia.
And since this podcast is about ghosts, I'll be honest and say I'm a little scared to be here.
Okay, so today we're going to get into Chasing Ghosts, a Tour of Fascination with Spirits and the Supernatural by Mark Hartzman. And that's going to be Ariel's nonfiction pick today.
Just put that in real big quotes.
Yeah. So, this book was not what I thought it was going to be. I wouldn't say it was bad, but it just wasn't what I was expecting. He starts off with the book, with a little bit about his beliefs and, some experiences that him and his coworkers have had. And he has this thought at the beginning of the book, which I thought was really dumb, personally. I'll see what y'all think. But he said, maybe when we see a ghost, the ghost is actually projecting itself into our minds. We're not seeing it with our eyes.
That is interesting.
I thought it was kind of dumb, but it is definitely a theory.
Yeah, I think it's interesting in a way. It's no.
Yeah. I never would have thought of that ever.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how he came up with it, but that was his.
No, let's think about this for a second here. It doesn't matter because it's all fake, but
look what you've done.
Let's pretend for a second it wasn't. If it was being projected into your mind, that could explain why a lot of times you can see something, it doesn't show up on cameras. Because it's not actually there. It's projecting an image of itself into your brain.
But what about when it moves stuff?
Well, it can move stuff, just not be visible.
I think there are different types of ghosts also, because I have seen people who have passed and have heard what they wanted me to do in my mind.
That's a good point.
All right. Well, anyways, on to this. 47% of Americans do believe in ghosts. Obviously,
oh my God, really?
Yes, us here at the library, we believe in ghosts.
It's 100% here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ange believes in ghosts, and Zach is wrong. So,
wow. I think we're a little biased here, guys.
I think I said what I said.
Just a little bit.
Okay, so at the beginning of this book, he talks a bit about some afterlives and how there are some similarities between the afterlives. And he was saying, it's curious that there are so many similarities between afterlives when they're thousands of miles apart or, a few hundred years apart. I'm going to go over a few of them. There was Native Americans and Native Canadians who, believe in shamans. And they think shamans are what are called psychopomps, which are someone who counsels the dead and helps them on their way. That's what they're supposed to be. Now, he did say that a lot of shamans back then would use sleight of hand and ventriloquist tricks to convince people of things. And if you didn't do what was asked of the shaman, you would conveniently end up dead.
Okay, can we pause for a second?
Yeah, please.
Okay, I was going to say one thing. This is what he is saying. We are not necessarily endorsing all the information.
No. Yeah, this is just the book. This is just what the book
This
says.
is just what the book says. Okay, so I just want to separate that out.
Yeah, because
Continue.
a lot of those shamans, they were the spiritual leaders of their tribes or their clans or whatever, and they were not charlatans, and they were not doing
like I said, this is just
things.
what there's a lot in this book where he's like pointing out how people fake stuff a lot, and I'm like, this is supposed to be a book about ghosts, and it makes it seem like you're just trying to say none of it's real. That's what I got from this book.
I mean, that's true, but
no, it's not.
Anyways, so there was a man in here. He had a doctorate, man of education and science and whatnot. His name was David Kowalski, and he is actually trying to keep the shaman services alive in modern day. A few quotes from him was that shamans offer nothing less than counseling for the dead, which I thought was an interesting thing. And then he also said, by healing the dead, the psychopomp heals the living from their grief. The shaman helps survivors achieve closure so that they themselves can move on to their own next adventure, which I thought was kind of neat.
Yeah.
I liked that quote a lot, so I wanted to make sure I included it. But then he also, Mark, the author, also covers the afterlife of the Greeks, how they start their journey with, is it Karen? Sharon? Karen, that's what I thought. Who will ferry them across the river Styx if they have a coin to pay. But apparently if you did not have a coin to pay,
You're not getting there.
Yeah, you got stuck in the land of the living.
Mm-hmm.
And once they got across the river, they would see Cerberus. And I found out in this book that he apparently also had a dragon tail in addition to his 3 heads, which I've never heard that. So that was cool. But he would let anyone go into death, but he wouldn't let anybody out. So fun times.
Okay, can we define is it psychopomp? That's the word you're saying?
Yeah.
It's from Greek, apparently it means guide of souls.
Which is what
Which is a word. It's a word I've never heard of, so I figured we should define it. What did you say?
Zach. That's what I said.
Did you say that at the beginning?
Yes, I did.
Oh, well. Cut this section out.
Someone should listen to me. Okay, so I am trying to go through this relatively quickly so we can talk about some ghost stuff. So I'm going to quickly go over these other afterlives. The Aztecs, they had a 4-year obstacle course that they had to get through. In Asia, they believe in a bunch of hungry ghosts just hang out in life, and they have to eat excrement to pay for their sins, which sounds disgusting, personally. Egyptians had the Book of the Dead to help them through their afterlife, and the Book of the Dead was essentially a spell book, and some of the spells he listed, so I'm going to read these to you. Spell 33 is to fight off serpents. Spell 40 is to overcome the horror of the creature that swallows the ass. Now, he did not explain what that meant. So, I don't know how you want to take that. And then spell 53 was to be able to help you eat excrement because you were there so long and that's all you had to eat. So, I guess it helped maybe you not taste it or make it taste like something else. It didn't say. Where Egyptians go to the scales to get judged for their life, there was even a spell to beat the scales.
Yeah.
So that,
I listened to that one where it's oh, heart, don't betray me.
Yeah. I was like, that's cheating, but okay. And then he even went into the Christian belief system, which we, in America mostly know what that is. But in the Bible, it does say that ghosts exist. But apparently early Christians did not think that the journey to heaven or hell was immediate. You kind of wandered through purgatory until you announced your sins out loud, and then you were purged with fire, and then you went on. So that's fun. But he was pointing out the similarities, how so many different afterlives have this journey before you get to where you need to go. And he was like, is that, coincidence? Did we just come up with similar ideas? It was interesting, but
back to some of the shaman stuff, they would help guide the dead person, the soul from this life to the afterlife, because that space in between was considered a dangerous place. And from some of these other ones, I could see that.
Yeah.
But, and even we have guardian angels that supposedly come, or our family members that have passed that come and help us through. So I guess maybe that tunnel is not quite as
quick and filled with light
as you think. I don't know.
Maybe the light is horrifying.
Apparently. Anyways, so the next part of the book, he goes into conversations with ghosts. And this is where he covers mediums and seances and stuff like that. And he pointed out a lot of mediums that fake stuff and how they faked it. And when they, came out later saying that they faked it, there was one that I thought was really funny was the very first one he talked about. There was a medium called Nellie C. Moore, and she would channel ghosts as a matchmaker. And there was one man named John Sibold who, you remember this?
I remember this.
Who fell in love with a ghost named Sarah. And he spent like a ton of money paying this medium and buying stuff for his ghost fiance and yada, yada, yada. And they get married and she doesn't show up to the wedding, even though he bought her a wedding dress and all this stuff. And so then he sues the medium for $7,500, which, is a lot of money back then, because he claims she tricked him. I feel like that was his own stupidity.
But the case was like dismissed, wasn't it?
Yeah, she didn't have to pay him.
Yeah.
He was like no,
you're an idiot.
Yep. Okay. Then he went into the Fox sisters, and if you don't know who they are, they were the very first mediums. It was two little girls. They were around the ages of 8 in this book, like 8 and 9. But the little footnote said they could have been anywhere from like 6 to 13. There's not like a real good record of when this started. But they started hearing knocking in their room, and they told their mom about it, and their mom didn't really believe them. And then they kind of were like, oh, it's Mr. Splitfoot or Splithoof or something like that. And the mom was like, okay, so she started looking into it a bit more, and the ghost started answering questions for her. And they figured out that his name was Charles, and that he used to live in the house, and that he was buried in their basement. They ended up finding human remains in their basement. So that was interesting. But the oldest sister, Leah, saw her sisters doing this and was like, okay, this is a business opportunity.
Yeah.
So she took them on the road performing these seances, made tons of money, and they did this up until adulthood. Like, they were married and stuff like that when Maggie, one of the medium sisters, came out and said, yeah, we were faking this. The doctors who said that we were faking it were right. We're doing it with our joints. We're making these knocking sounds with that. And then later she goes back and says, oh no, I was just saying that for a paycheck. You don't really know if it was true or not.
I can't imagine having that much control over toe joints. Because it was their toes.
It was their toes, yeah. And I mean, she said in there it was something that they had to practice as children. And they started the knocking with an apple tied to a string to scare their mother, is what she said.
What little turds.
Yeah, basically. I mean, that sounds just like
That just sounds like a kid thing. Like, I could see Ariel doing that. No doubt.
1,000,000%.
I have a story, Ange, you'll remember this one. When we were young and we used to poke the green pokeberries and string them.
Oh my God.
And we brought them in one time on a string, and Mom was vacuuming and she's terrified of snakes and threw it on the floor, and I screamed, snake! Well, we were in trouble for a long time after that one.
I can't imagine why.
It was funny though. Okay, sorry.
That's all right. So anyway, so the next mediums that he talks about is the Davenport brothers. They kind of taught Harry Houdini some stuff later on in life. So they used to tie each other up, turn off all the lights, and they would perform a seance. And these ghosts would come in and they would play music, right? Mm-hmm. And when they turned on the lights, they were still tied to these chairs. Well, a police officer came to the seance one night and decided to light a lantern. Mm-hmm. And ruined their trick because they were up, they were playing the instruments. They could tie themselves up, untie themselves, and then tie themselves back up again, right? So then after that was ruined, they kind of went back home and they were trying to like rebuild their business, I guess you could call it. And they built this cabinet where they would be tied in the cabinets.
Yeah.
And they would hold flour in their hands. So, if they let go of the flour, it'd get everywhere. And, it would be proof that they stayed where they were. But they would stick their hands in their pockets, let the flour go, and then reach and grab more flour before it came out. So they, definitely kind of were.
There are tricksters out there, probably a lot of them.
Charlatans. Mm-hmm. But they did end up showing Harry Houdini their tricks before they quit. So that was interesting. But so many celebrities had been called forth in these seances and stuff from different mediums. Lincoln has been called forth, Edgar Allan Poe, Mark Twain, Shakespeare. And then some ghosts, they would write stories or poetry, or other ghosts would paint. And then the mediums would be like, oh, such and such ghost did this work. But my absolute favorite part of this was there was a ghost named Patience Worth, and she wrote a story. In the middle of her story, she just quit and said, that'd be enough. And that was it. She was done. And I was like, I love that. I'm going to use that phrase from now on. That'd be enough.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the mediums would use like all kinds of different tools. They would use, obviously, the tricks like turning off all the lights and playing instruments, or they use slates that they would hold under the table, and spirit writing would happen. So like the ghost would write on the slate. They would use Ouija boards, all kinds of things, just to like make a quick buck. Well, some went a little farther. There was a medium called, I believe it was D.D. Holmes. D.D. Home, just Home. And his big thing was he levitated. But anytime he levitated, he would be like, don't notice me. Like, no one was allowed to look directly at him. So he'd like levitate over in your periphery, so you just kind of see him levitating.
Yeah.
But you weren't allowed to notice him, which I thought was hilarious.
That's fantastic.
And then there was another lady named Eva C. I can't pronounce her last name, but her actual name was Marthe Berard, I believe. She was like French. But she materialized ectoplasmic births. She would get completely naked so somebody could inspect her everywhere. And I mean everywhere. And then she would produce this ectoplasm. One guy was at this ectoplasmic seance thing, and the ectoplasm got near him. So he bit it, thinking that was...
That would be my first reaction, obviously. Just bite the ectoplasm.
It was on her, and it was floating.
Oh, okay.
They described it as what a cheap Halloween ghost costume would look like. And the guy was like, the only thing I got away with was like a little bit of ectoplasm stuck between my teeth. He's like, hopefully next time I can bite off enough to cover in my front porch. Because it was essentially like chiffon.
Uh-huh.
Is what they were using.
Uh-huh.
But it was ectoplasm. It was, gosh, that was the funniest.
Quote unquote.
Yeah. Obviously, in history, there was a ton of charlatans pretending to channel these ghosts. Something else I learned in this book was that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and Harry Houdini were friends. Now, in my head, they were not alive at the same time.
Yeah, this is true.
So I was like, oh. But Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was very much a believer in ghosts. 1000% was like, yes, they are real. These people can channel ghosts. It's amazing. Harry Houdini did not, because he used to work as a medium at the beginning of his career. So he knew all the tricks. And he was trying to tell Sir Arthur Conan Doyle all the time, they're fake. They're faking it. And Doyle believed that Houdini had powers. Even though he's like, dude, this is a trick. It's not real. And he was like, no, you have
done,
powers.
I mean, if Sherlock Holmes believes it, that's good enough for me.
My gosh.
They ended up not being friends later on in life because Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's wife suddenly had the power to be a medium, right? So she invited Harry Houdini over and channeled his mother. And Harry Houdini got really mad about it. He's like, this cannot be my mom. She can't speak English.
Oh, like you couldn't like hear it in your head?
Well, never mind. Harry Houdini went around trying to expose all these fakes. That was like his main thing. And during a court case, trying to get it to where people can't charge for seances, which ended up losing. But he offered a $10,000 reward for somebody to prove without, any reason of doubt that ghosts were real, which that's a crap ton of money. Mm-hmm. During that court case, there was a medium. There was a bunch of mediums watching, but One of them was named Madame Marcia, and she stood up and she said, my religion, which was spirituality, goes back to Jesus Christ, Houdini. Houdini doesn't know that I am a Christian. And Houdini replied, Jesus was a Jew and did not charge $2 a visit. So, like, he was very, like, no, you know? So, he was, like, super, like, this is not happening.
Yeah.
So, there was a board of people who got together who would, you know, investigate all these claims and dispute them. One of them almost actually got the $10,000. Her name was Mina Crandon, and she went by Marjorie. And she was described as like Henry Houdini's nemesis because she convinced everybody else on that board that she was legit. And the way that Harry Houdini kind of caught her was he tied a silk rope around his leg to cut off the circulation, left it there all day, and then untied it right beforehand so the blood was flowing back. So his leg was extremely sensitive, and he could feel her moving her foot out of her shoe to make these knocking noises. Because they put their feet on top of her shoes, so she couldn't move her feet.
Yeah.
But he could feel where she was moving her foot to get it out.
I don't know. I think he probably made it up because he was like being proven wrong.
Maybe. I don't know. But that was, that chunk of that book was like, so you don't believe in ghosts? You don't think this is real? Which struck me as odd. And then the final parts of the book, he actually got into ghosts, you know, and haunted houses and poltergeist and, you know, things that people use throughout the years to detect ghosts, such as, you know, Thomas Edison's spirit phone. He made a prototype. Nothing ever came of it. And he died before he finished it. And then spirit photography, where people take pictures and catch ghosts in the picture. Abraham Lincoln supposedly is in a picture. And they have those pictures in the book where Abraham Lincoln's standing behind his wife. There was something called a psychic howler. That was a machine that was like incredibly sensitive and could even detect the heartbeat of people. When it detected something like this energy, what they called it, it would let out this really loud howling sound. Hence why it was called that. But the ghost that he talked about was the Winchester house, which if you don't know what that is, it's a house that was built for ghosts essentially. It had, 2,400 square feet, 160 rooms, 10,000 windows, 2,000 doors, 40 staircases, and 47 fireplaces. Mm-hmm. Sarah Winchester thought that she had to continuously build her house, otherwise she was going to die. And she lived, you know, up into her 80s, so something worked.
Yeah. You know why do you remember why she had so many fireplaces?
To let all the ghosts out.
Yeah, because ghosts could, that's how they escaped the house, and she had plenty of them, so they wouldn't have to
tons of them. Yeah. Convenient.
Didn't she also like try to confuse them by making doors that went nowhere?
Yeah.
That's what they say, but
open out into the thing. I don't see any in the pictures, but that's what I hear.
That's what they say, but she spent like $5 million building this house, and it auctioned off for only $5,000.
Well, they could get you a nice shack in Seattle nowadays.
The guy who bought it opened it up to, you know, as a tourist thing. Mm-hmm. Another thing they talked about was Gettysburg's ghosts. Mm-hmm. Now, I've heard a lot of scary stories about that. They also talked about the Mallory mansion. She was a work of something. I was going to say something else there. But she would have these big parties, and after everybody left, she'd go up to her attic and torture people.
Oh, I remember that.
And the reason she got caught was because her house burnt down, and the firefighters found 7 people chained up in her attic. And she, like, tortured them by, like, cutting off their ears, cutting off their tongues, all this junk. And they say that, you know, that place is haunted from the people that she tortured.
Yeah.
And the last kind of part that he covered was poltergeist, which I thought were really kind of cool. He said that poltergeist could be telekinetic temper tantrums.
From teenagers.
From teenagers. I was really waiting for Zach to say something.
That's a bit of a stretch. I'm sorry, I was trying to process what you said. What he's saying, right, is that instead of being a ghost, right, or a poltergeist or whatever, it's actually teenage hormones manifesting telekinesis.
Yes.
And that's a better explanation. I mean, neither of them are good explanations. Poltergeist, I think, is more believable than teenagers. Oh my God.
I like to listen to a lot of and read a lot of stuff about Bigfoot and like weird things in the woods and stuff like that. Well, there's a couple podcasts that I've been listening to, and they've been noticing like this poltergeist type activity in the woods. but you don't call it poltergeist activity because it's in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the same kind of stuff. It's teenage
Branches.
big feet. Teenage
Oh my
big
God.
feet.
There you go. Teenage big feet.
There we
Causing
go.
the branches to shake and stuff. To
Yeah.
get thrown.
Well, no, it's other type of stuff that happens, but it's like, I thought it was hilarious.
Anyways, one of the most notorious poltergeists there was the Bell Witch.
Mm-hmm.
Have y'all ever heard of her?
Yeah.
Okay, so she was a ghost or witch or, poltergeist, whatever you want to call her, that harassed this girl named Betsy. She was the daughter of John Bell. And she hated the boy that Betsy was, in love with and was all like, you need to leave him. You need to leave him. And she would, smack Betsy and scratch her and do all these mean things to her. And then it went to the point that it would start, harassing and attacking soldiers that were there. And even went as far as to attack John, her dad, and kill him. And
That's intense.
Yeah, they assumed if you go the telekinetic temper tantrum thing, they think that maybe Betsy's dad sexually assaulted her when she was young.
Mm-hmm.
And when she hit puberty,
She's like, enough of this.
it went crazy and attacked. So it's something to think about. I thought it was a really interesting take on the poltergeist. Makes it seem less like a scary thing and more like okay, this needs to be handled kind of deal. But yeah, that's basically what the book was. Just a bunch of mediums or charlatans. The afterlife is similar. Ghosts can be explained with this other stuff.
Which I think he's wrong on a lot of it, but he did have a good point because I listened to the audio of this one, most of it, that just because you can't prove something doesn't mean it's untrue.
Yeah, he did say that a few times. You can't, he's like, we haven't proven that ghosts aren't real. We just have proven that we can't prove them.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't prove that something doesn't exist in the first place, to be fair.
To be fair.
To be fair. Guys, watch Letterkenny. It's a fantastic show.
Sorry about that.
I will say, I don't think everything is a ghost, but I do think that they're real. I do believe in a lot of this stuff, but I
1000%.
don't think everything is, if that makes sense.
1000% believe ghosts are real, because I've had some really scary stuff happen to me.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, Ange, it's time for you to chime in.
I'm just listening to everyone, but yeah, 100% believe they're real. No, don't believe. No, they're real. 100% know they're real. Seen too many.
I've never seen one with my eyes, but I've had things grab me. I've had things, tug on my hair. I've had things shake my bed. I had something hit my mattress so hard it lifted up.
Your mama had one slap her in the face and knock her into a wall.
Ouch.
Remember that, Carla?
Yeah, I was at the store.
Yep. That was a bad place, though. And I believe that some ghost spirits are not very nice, and I believe that others are just looking for, I don't know, maybe a way to be finished or to check back with you and make sure everyone's okay.
Yeah, I mean,
and many different experiences that we have had that I've had personally, and we have had as a family, to not know beyond a shadow of a doubt that there are ghosts among us.
Yeah, it's like with Nana's Christmas tree.
Oh, yeah.
So my great aunt passed away a few years ago, and the one thing that I really wanted of hers was this glass Christmas tree.
Ceramic Christmas tree.
It was ceramic Christmas tree that has the little lights on it. You can buy them in the store now, but this was an old one, and I wanted it so bad, so I got it. And it sat on my counter in my kitchen. And this thing has moved with me twice, but it sat on my counter in my kitchen for 6 months, not doing a thing, not plugged in, nothing. And while I was cooking dinner one evening, it just starts playing music for a good 30 seconds. No reason. Nobody had touched it. Nobody had even been near it. And it just started playing music. It made me think that when Nana passed, I remember thinking, I may have even said out loud, Nana, if the afterlife is real, let me know somehow. I took the music playing as her coming back and being like, it's okay.
Yeah.
There is something afterlife.
She made that too, that ceramic Christmas tree.
Oh, did she make it? I didn't know she made it. I just remember every time going to her house at Christmas being so entranced by that tree on her table. That and her like little village. Love them.
Village is great.
I did like the little village. That was pretty cool. Kind of creepy in that room, though.
I've had good experiences with, ghosts and scary ones. I've gone ghost hunting. I've gone up to Moundsville twice.
Oh, the penitentiary?
Not me,
Is that the
man.
thing?
Oh,
Not me.
yeah,
I will not.
Like, I went up there twice. I went up there once with some friends from high school and my dad and my grandfather. And then I went up again as early 20s with a boyfriend. The second time we were up there, they were doing the tour and we got to the insane people rooms, like the padded ones, solitary confinement type deal. We heard banging on a door. We all went in there and looked. We were like, we're going to check this out because they were a bunch of ghost hunters. I was just along for the ride. But so we opened the door. We looked in there. There was nothing in there. So we shut the door and we were like, can you do it again? And it did it again. And then somebody like dropped and passed out on the floor.
Oh, no.
Oh my gosh.
That would have been
Some
me.
people.
It was like, I was like, oh my God. You
No
know?
way.
Somebody got too scared and fell over.
Yeah, that's what it was. They got too scared and they just passed out. But I mean, it was crazy that that we heard the knocking. We went and looked. We looked all around and then asked it to do it again, and it did do it again. And then also that night we had went to the cafeteria, and there's no power out there. There's nothing, and we're out there, and the water fountain all of a sudden kicks on, and the cover is off the water fountain, so you can see the fans moving and everything going. The belts in there. And I was like, is there power to this room? And we were like, we're pretty sure there's not. So we went out and asked the people in the tour thing. And they came out and looked and it was still on. They're like, yeah, there is no power out here. It's not even hooked up. So that was kind of interesting.
I'll tell you two experiences. One that was terrifying for me as a child, and another one that was as I've been older and had it. The first one, when I was a kid, was in that store that we lived in. Anyway, I used to see these two things, and I called them, one of them the Shadow Man. That was the one that's very vivid in my memory. He was about 3 feet tall, and he had a top hat, a big top hat, actually. It was probably a third of his size, and a black cape that went behind him. And the really weird thing was he was just a shadow, but I never saw what made the shadow. But the shadow was the edges were very precise. It wasn't like it was blending into anything. It was like darker than a normal shadow, but I just knew it was a shadow. And the other thing that came with him often was huge. It was well over 6 feet tall, and its edges weren't as crisp, I guess, but it was huge. That's the main thing I remember. But the little shadow guy was mean. He one time got my neck. I was sitting on a chair watching some TV, and he pulled on my necklace, and I didn't realize that's what it was at first, but my necklace like tightened up around my neck. And sometimes you'll wear a necklace and they'll do that. So I just reached up and pulled it down, and then it did it again. And I thought, that's just odd. And so I pulled it down again. And then the third time I noticed him out of the corner of my eye, which goes back to the guy who levitated, who said, "Don't look at me,
Don't deceive me."
Yeah, don't see him, because I could always see him like out of the corner of my eye, and if I looked at him directly, he would like take off really fast. But if I could remember to stay focused in front, then I could actually see him in my peripheral vision for a period of time. But I saw him and jerked my necklace back down and threw it across the room and never actually found the necklace again. So he was with me a lot in my childhood, a lot. And then the good one of the amazingly good memories that I have of seeing something is I'm in Monroe County now, and I was cutting hay on a farm that we were renting. And there's this huge house down there from the early 1900s, absolutely gorgeous house. Big tree in the front yard, and I was cutting the field directly in front of it. And I had made a couple passes with the mower, and I stopped, and I looked over at the house, and I'm not making this up. I swear I'm not making this up. I watched the house in front of me transform back to I would assume shortly after it was first built. The tree that is huge in that yard was small. And there was a woman standing, it gives me chill bumps remembering this. And there was a woman standing at the window, and she had on a white shirt and it had a high collar, and her hair was put up on top of her head. And there were 2 children playing under that small tree, and she was watching them. And she looked up and she made eye contact with me. And when she did, you could feel, well, I could feel the love that she had for those children. And it just like, I don't know how to explain it, but like blew through me. And then I smiled. I remember smiling back at her, and it felt like this lasted forever, but I'm sure it was just, a matter of seconds. But then she looked back down at her children, and everything kind of went back to the way it was, at that time, to the house being old and the tree being big and obviously nothing being there. So I continued to cut hay, and I rode on that high for a while of all that love, and it just felt good. But she didn't scare me at all, because I've seen so many things in my life that that was kind of a normal. And then I went to the back field and I started cutting, and it's a huge field. And as I was coming up on the right-hand side of the field, up in front of me, I saw an older gentleman standing at the end of the field, and I knew it wasn't an actual person standing there. So I stopped the tractor and I just sat and watched him for a minute. And I took great care to pay attention to everything he was wearing. I couldn't see him from his knees down. It was like just knees up and body. And he had on a brown tweed print, like tweed coat that had it was like a pattern on the front of it, almost like checks, but it was like the bigger checks. It wasn't bold or anything. It was just real subtle. A white shirt and brown pants. He was just standing there looking at me, and I knew that he was important for something. So I just watched him for a little bit, and then he just kind of went away. A few days later, I went to Irene and Russell Green's house, which was the property I was cutting hay on. And I spoke with Irene, and I told her about what I had seen. And the day that I had seen it was a very special day to her. It was her and Russell's anniversary. And I was trying to describe to her the man and the woman. And she went and got an old photo album, and we started leafing through that photo album. And I saw the man in the photo album, and I said, this right here, this is the gentleman that I saw. And she said, that was my father. And what you described as what he wore is what he was buried in. So I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that ghosts are real.
That gave me chill bumps.
Yeah, I'm gonna cry maybe.
She was mentioning the shadow man, and that's actually a pretty common thing that people see. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of kids see stuff. Like Alex, when he was little, he said stuff to me that he saw, like when I was living with my grandma, and he goes, Mom, how come that boy doesn't have to go to bed? And I'm like, what boy? He's like the one at the end of the bed. And I was like, we're sleeping on the couch. Thanks. But like, I don't know what it is about kids, but kids see stuff. I guess maybe they're just more open to things. And then as you get older, you kind of lose that. But I mean, I know a lot.
I think you're taught to lose it also. I think so many people discount what you tell them, that you just believe that as a child, and you start to grow up, that it couldn't be real. So you're not open anymore. Yeah. We didn't have that as children. It was never discounted when we told Mom something about that. I remember it was never discounted. She listened. Yeah. And I think she believed us. And that's the reason it has followed. Well, it's followed me through life. And I couldn't even tell you the number of opportunities to see people and to know things beforehand. Do you remember when we were younger, Carla, and I would get that like feeling where I would say it felt like something was inside of me trying to come out and stand in front of me and tell me that something was wrong, but I couldn't tell what it was?
Vaguely, yes, that? Yeah.
It was usually involved somebody having issues with an automobile, like a car wreck or it was a bad foreboding, and it would send me into anxiety attacks. But I didn't know what those were when I was a kid, but I can just remember feeling very shaky and like I really wanted to pull this thing out of my chest and let it just tell me what it was. But it was just a foreboding of knowing something bad was about to happen, but not knowing what it was and not being able to stop it.
I think that's probably the reason a lot of people turn off that feelings, because it is so scary sometimes and difficult to deal with.
I think we still kind of deal with that too.
Yeah.
As adults. Like, that's why I'm very grateful for our family, because we've always been open to this. And I remember telling you, seeing weird stuff out the window when I was little, and you're like, you looked it up and you were like, this is what it could be.
Yeah.
And, that gave me, a sense of like calm, because I was like, okay, I'm not seeing things. I'm not going insane. I remember being worried when I was a child that I was going to grow up and be schizophrenic, because I saw these things, not necessarily ghosts, because I saw.
Sometimes they weren't ghosts.
I was going to say, some of the things that I saw would not have been ghosts. And I'm not sure that I ever saw a ghost, but I have seen other things, and I have experienced ghosts with, the noises and the touching and the sheer terror of some of them, but I've always been very grateful that our family has always been very open to it. Like, we sit down and we talk about things, we've experienced, like the radio people, or, the thing that I thought looked like Bigfoot when I was.
Which probably was, but I was trying to calm you down.
And, I think that's why I'm so scared of aliens too, because they're like not from here.
Yeah.
So if I see them, they could take me.
Crazy. Do you, Ange, when you were little though, I mean, probably before you really have many memories, you had an imaginary friend.
Ken.
Yeah, that was very real to you.
Yeah,
I mean,
he had
like,
a place at the table.
Oh yeah, Ken liked to drive us nuts because no one else could see him but you. But by God, he was real.
Yeah, he was. I remember that.
He probably was real.
He probably was, but it's like,
I was gonna say, I think a lot of little kids' imaginary friends are
real.
Yeah,
are spirits of some sort. So
I think they're there to help you get through something that you just need to, get through.
Yeah.
I don't think they're bad for the little ones. I mean, I've had one of the worst ones, I guess, that most of the time I don't get really afraid, but I was driving home one evening, left work and was coming home and was very tired. And that's a lot of times when I'm not when I'm just feeling tired or something, I can see more stuff because I can let my guard down, I guess, and do it. But anyway, I was coming home and I looked in my rearview mirror and there was a lady sitting in my back seat.
Nope.
That would scare the crap out of me.
Yep. Now that one got me because I was not expecting it, but I can tell you, she was an older woman, I would guess in her 60s, and she had she was one of those women who went to the hairdresser once a week and had her hair fixed, and it stayed the same the entire week.
Yeah, and
it was like a blondish red. But she was an older woman. To this day, I have no clue who she was. I have no clue why she was there. And she only stayed for a fraction of a second, because when you look up in your mirror, you're looking up just to check traffic behind you. You're not looking up to stare in a mirror. And I glanced up and saw her, and immediately my eyes went back to the road and went back up. But I almost ran off the road that night. That one scared me.
Yeah, I would have wrecked, died, and then I would have found her and been like, you did this. This is your fault. What were you thinking?
She just needed a ride home.
Well, she didn't stay long.
Well,
maybe she looked at me and was like, yeah, this ain't my person.
Yeah. Do you remember this is my favorite one to tell, the pumpkin patch guy?
Absolutely.
Oh my God.
Is this the one where you were walking home?
Trying to get away from it.
Yeah, it's that we were riding our bikes on, Ange and I were, and we thought we saw Otmar, which was our neighbor, in his pumpkin patch. It was in the middle of summer and it was broad daylight. He was just hoeing away and we were hollering, hey Otmar, hey Otmar. And when we got up there, the thing we thought was Otmar, who had on this like bright, I mean, the green flannel was like green, wasn't it? It was like not just faded.
Yeah.
And blue jeans like stuff, and his hoe was like a red hoe. He had gloves and a hat, but he didn't have a face when he turned around. It was just all misty. Like, it didn't
I
take.
don't remember anything below the knees either.
No, me either. But I was pretty scared.
Yeah, but
he could have had on high heel shoes. I wouldn't have known because I was pretty scared. I remember we turned her when we realized it wasn't Otmar. We didn't know what it was. We turned around and was riding our bikes down this little bank. Well, Her bell bottoms got stuck in the chain.
Oh no.
Okay, now I was the big sister. I should have helped her. Okay, no. She was dragging her bike and keeping up with me. That was it.
Every man for themselves.
Sorry.
I was probably 8 or 9, which would have made her like probably 6.
Yeah.
So I was.
She's like, I'm out of here.
I did wait when we got down to like where my driveway is now. But oh my God, it was terrifying.
I was not very far behind. That's
No,
for
you
sure.
were not.
And just so you know, even though you were the big sister, I do not begrudge you leaving. Because you actually didn't. Because I maintained.
You did. You kept up dragging the bike.
I did. Yes, I did.
Scary times.
Oh my gosh.
That was a bad one. We pushed our bike straight up a hill to avoid that area.
Yeah.
We wouldn't go back that way. I remember that. And that's a big hill.
And it's straight up.
Especially when you're little.
Yeah. Pushing a bike through the weeds.
Oh man.
Anyway, that's a funny one. So now what do you think, Zach?
I still think you guys are all just like seeing other things or feeling other things, and it's just not all real. I don't know, I've never had any of these experiences, so I don't know what to tell you.
You've heard about the terrifying one where
I've heard about all kinds of stuff, but that doesn't mean I think it's ghosts or anything.
For our listeners, I will tell you that my most terrifying event that ever happened. This was when I was dating the ghost hunter, and I fully blame him for this situation.
It came home with you.
It came home with me.
Ooh.
I spent the night at his house. It felt like his bed was shaking ever so slightly. Then it felt like little hands were going right up along the edge of the bed. And I remember thinking, keep your eyes shut. Do not open them. You do not want to see what's there. All right. Eventually, I fell asleep. And in the morning, I tell him about it. And he's like, oh, so you felt it too. And I was like, are you freaking serious? You didn't tell me about this? You didn't give me any kinds of heads up. And he told me that, there was this shadow guy that followed him around everywhere. And his bed would do that. Well, I came back home to my house, and within the next week, my bed started doing that ever slight shaking, where you would think, is this actually happening? Am I imagining it? So that went on for a while. I would have my clothes tugged on. I would have my hair pulled in my hallway. I always felt like something was following me. Like you always just had that feeling that something was there. And it got to the point where I didn't like to go into my bedroom unless someone else was there with me because I was just that scared of it. I had he wasn't even 1 yet, was he? I had my son and he wasn't even 1 yet. And he was with me. So I kept on thinking, I cannot let him in that room. Finally, I get up the nerve and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go sleep on my bed. I'm tired of sleeping on the couch. My back's killing me because I was trying to sleep on the couch with a 1-year-old essentially. And that just doesn't work. I'm laying there and I sleep with my arm up here under my head, so I'm using my arm like a pillow, and something grabs my finger and it sends what feels like an electric shock all the way down through my arm and into my body. Scares the crap out of me. So I'm awake at that point. And I'm like, are you serious? I said it out loud. I was mad. I was terrified, but I was mad. And my bed starts shaking. I'm like, you have got to stop. I have got to go to sleep. And something hits the end of my mattress so hard in between my legs, it lifts the end of my mattress up. And at that point, I say, F it, you can have the room. And I grabbed Alex and I went downstairs and I slept on that couch for 3 months until I moved out of that house. Because I refused to go back in my room.
Mm-hmm.
It was terrifying.
Yeah, so whenever I was a kid, my sister and I shared a room for the longest time, and then my 2 brothers shared a room also. And whenever I finally got my own room, because my sister is 8 years older than me, she was like, I want my own room, and she deserved one. It was fine. I moved across the hall and a little bit adjacent. You can see looking from that room into our old room that I shared with her, the closet. The door, is open in the closet. Yeah, you can't see anything. The closet doors don't face the other door, but you can see where it's built in there. We used to sleep with our door open. So I did whenever I moved into that room. And the first couple of nights were fine, but then after that, I would see these little, I don't know, I don't think that they're ghosts or anything. I don't know what they are, but they were people, like perfectly people shaped. There were no like identifying features on any of them because they were just like a really crisp, nice white outline. And then inside they were just like TV static, like the snow. And it was like,
That's original.
Yeah. And they would peek out of where the doors would be. Like her closet doors were never open, but they would peek out of there like they were. And if I ever looked directly at them, they would just kind of like stay for an extra split second and then like go away. And it was just like, you could really just see them go like this. And then like, you don't see them again for, a couple of minutes. And so after, I don't know, I think maybe 2 or 3 nights of that, I finally started sleeping with my door shut. So now I sleep with my door shut.
Yeah, I definitely would have. I know if you are scared of something, check your animals and see how they're reacting.
True. Yeah.
In the house that I live in now, there's been a history in that house of certain things.
Mm-hmm.
There's this one closet in the bedroom that I used to sleep in. Me and my son switched bedrooms. It's like a little cubby hole closet. And I used to sleep with that door open because I used it like a nightstand, essentially, because there's shelves in there. One night, I wake up from a dead freaking sleep. Wake up and instantly feel terrified. And I look at that closet and it seems darker than usual.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, get out of my house right now. You are not welcome here. Because I'm the person who gets pots and pans clanging on the yard. Get out of my house!
Yeah.
Because that's just who I am as a person.
Yeah.
So we had our cat Philip there, and he was laying on the bed in between me and that closet, staring at that closet. And you could kind of hear like a low growl. And I'm like, Philip, is it okay? And he stares at it a little longer. He's not moving. So I was like, seriously, right now, get out of my house. And like not even 30 seconds later, Phil is fine and he goes and sits in the closet.
Wow.
Like I got like chill bumps telling that. But it was like I was so scared and I've never had a problem since then. Now I do have things that knock stuff off of my shelves. Like me and my husband would sit in our living room and we clearly see something just go knock and like whatever falls on the floor. Michael's like, are you freaking serious? Because Michael's not very superstitious. He's not like he thinks ghosts are real, but he does not think that they bother us or anything like that. And I'm like, it's our resident ghost. I was like, Philip has passed since then, our cat Philip. And I was like, it's probably Philip getting up there and going, knock.
Now I'm the problem.
Yeah. But I never get a bad vibe from whatever this is. It's just more of a mere annoyance. Like, Can we not?
Yeah.
Please. Come on now.
Honestly, I haven't experienced a whole lot of stuff. That was like the one thing that I ever experienced that I really noticed. Recently, I want to say it's been a couple of, maybe a year or two. I think, it was during the COVID shutdown or just after we reopened. I know I was sitting in my parents' living room and I want to say that maybe my nephew was there too. And I know that my mom was in the house somewhere, but I was sitting on the couch and we were watching TV. I don't remember what it was. And I had paused it to ask my mom something. There is a shelf that we have next to the couches where my parents have their, like they have a double recliner chair. And there's a shelf that we have that has a picture of our old dog, Cece, who has passed away. It's been since I was here in college, like my second year. So and there's like a few other things that sit on that shelf too. And that shelf, I've never seen it move. Like it only comes down during Christmas. It is secure and something popped it so hard from the bottom that it completely came off the wall and everything fell. I was like, you can't just, because it's wedged into screws. Like you can't like undo that without force. And I was just like, I remember screaming, are you joking?
I remember you telling me this when it happened. She was like, you guys will never believe this.
Never, ever. And that's really one of the only other things that other than like, this one I don't think is really like a ghost thing. I think it's more of like a spiritual connection thing. When my mama passed, I felt her pass. I was on my way to the hospital to see her. I had been pretty calm most of the day, and about the time I was leaving, I was watching my niece in Charleston. And about the time my sister got home, changed, and she was like, go see her. About the time I was on the split to get to the hospital, I just started like sobbing, and then I couldn't breathe. And then, I don't know, it was maybe like 2 or 3 seconds. And then it was fine. And like, I was still crying, but I felt like relief. Mm-hmm. And so like maybe 5 seconds after that, my mom called and she was like, she's gone. And I said, I know. She was like, what? And I was like, I felt her. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, obviously I said it while I was like sobbing, but it was like, she wasn't ready for it. She was like, what? And I was like, I've never experienced anything like that since. Yeah. So that was pretty wild for me, but I don't experience a whole lot of stuff. So whenever it happens, it happens.
Yep.
I think in our family, it's mostly Ange.
Yeah.
And you, Ariel.
I do see a lot of
and
stuff.
I think either I don't have it to that extent or I have so successfully blocked.
I think
mine.
Part of it is you are so focused on all these other things I don't think that you pay as much attention to it. Mm-hmm. Where Auntie expects it. So, you know, when it happens, she just accepts it.
Yeah.
And me, I'm almost looking for it.
Yeah.
I'm like, let's be scared.
I'm like, nope, not for me, man.
But there's like certain things, like there's certain things I am not okay with. Like Ghost, I'm like, yeah, that's scary, but it's more of a, oh, this is an interesting, fun kind of scary. Mm-hmm. And then there's, you know, Aliens where I'm like, no way. Mm-hmm. And My Woods is one of those scaries that I will not mess with.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because
there is something up in my woods, and you cannot convince me otherwise.
I bet it's not always there.
No, not always, just sometimes.
Yeah. Oof. Kind of weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe it is a ghost, but I don't think
think so.
I don't think it's a ghost. It's probably Bigfoot.
It probably is.
It's probably the Bigfoot I saw when I was young.
Yeah, it's like waiting for me to come over and find it. It's like, hey, how you doing?
I've been watching.
I've come for tea.
You need to take it apart.
Take it apart. Yeah.
About the same level of explanation there. Bigfoot versus a ghost for me.
Oh my God.
But the thing is, like, I'm sure have seen stuff when you were little.
I did see stuff when I was little. I think that almost all of it has been explained, at least to some degree, from me. Like at Mama Henry's house, we used to hear footsteps. It's definitely the person next door walking around, and it just transmitted through the ground. Stuff like that. It 100% was.
I think he's a liar.
I think that works in trailers, but it doesn't work so much in houses.
I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that can make noises that sound like footsteps in houses. There's tons of stuff.
I'm not saying that's not true, but I don't think it transmits through the ground like it does with like trailers.
No, not in that, but it does in the trailers. I've actually heard it during the day too.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's just stuff like that, or I don't know. There's been other little things, but I've explained them all away. Actually, the scariest thing that's ever happened to me. This sounds really stupid. There I am at my house by myself in the dark, out in the woods. Right, the one up here in Seattle. I had my VR headset on, and I heard knocking. The most realistic knocking I've ever heard in it.
Oh my God,
I was like, oh my God, there's somebody at my door. Freaked me the crap out. It was in the video I was watching in the VR thing. It was in the video. Like, I'm watching this thing, and then there's a knock at the door, and I didn't, like, continue watching because I was too freaked out. And then I went back to it, and I was like, oh my God, it's that. Because I went back a little bit, and I'm just like, I mean, it was like just some stupid VR test thing, and I was like, this sounds really good in those.
I thought he said he was, like, outside in the woods with VR headset. And I was like, that's your first mistake.
Right? No, he was at his house that is in the woods.
Yeah. I finally put it together.
Another thing, though, I'll try to get it for between now and next week. But I found the video camera, which has our recordings from the first time we went to Moundsville.
Really?
So.
Nice. You know. Okay, when we went there, our father is a psychologist. So we went there and he automatically was like, we gotta go to where the insane people are. So he went up there and he's tried to do like a therapy session up there.
That really tracks.
And we got some recordings, like some audio recordings.
Yeah, I remember hearing those.
But
I didn't go.
Me and Misty and Daniel were all off to the side being like, are you serious right now?
Yeah.
Like, we were judging him so hard, as like any teenager can do.
Yeah.
But like, especially because I was like, he is so freaking ignorant. I hope a ghost gets him.
There was something scary that did happen there. We were like freaked out because we kept hearing some like clicking and stuff like that. And it was another member of the group that was throwing pennies at us.
Yeah, I remember
You
we were
remember
down in
that?
the showers and they were up in the cells.
They were
That's where it
upstairs
was.
and they were throwing pennies. And I'm
throwing
like, come
stuff at
on.
us. Yeah, we were like, what is that?
Yeah.
Ange, do you remember at Momo's house hearing pennies?
Yes, in the hallway outside
Yes.
the bathroom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Oh
would
my
hear them
gosh.
periodically, and there was nothing. We looked for them. There was
And
no
they-
pennies.
Nana always talked about hearing pennies
Yeah,
falling.
you did.
And the radio people.
Yeah.
The radio people.
We hear.
Yeah,
she,
Mom was
she
big on
always.
that.
What did Nana hear? She heard big band music, didn't she? Or was that Mama?
No, Mama heard people talking, like they were talking on the radio.
Okay, then Nana heard the big band music.
I do
always
remember
heard-
her talking about that.
I always heard classic rock. And it's like the radio people are not what you think.
Mhm.
You can hear them talking, but you can't understand what they're saying.
Yeah.
Except
It's like-
every now and then you'll make a word
Yeah,
out or
and
something
it's
like
like very mumbled.
That's a good premise for like a story.
That really is.
Should write that into a short story, like a little short horror story about the radio people.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of creepy.
As long as
That
you
would
don't
be
make it too
Stephen
scary, I
King,
might
right?
read it.
that. What, Ange?
Stephen King.
Oh, my God.
Up with that.
If he listens to the podcast, he'll probably write it himself.
Yeah, probably.
You should, yeah.
Do we have any other last
Oh, I
thoughts
have-
before we wrap up?
I have one last thought.
Okay.
I just want to
Wait.
point out that this guy who wrote this book didn't do a ton of research, I don't think.
No, he
Because I
has
was,
a bunch in the back. Like,
well, he can say that, but the first, the like that line that he took, the thing that swallows an ass, right? Books,
Yeah, what was
spell
that?
40 of the Book of the Dead. So it's a serpent, but the only place where that line appears is on some janky website that didn't translate things super well.
I
There's
think
a
it's
few other
hilarious.
instances. But I found something from the University of Chicago which discusses it a little bit more in depth. It is a donkey, obviously. We knew that was the kind of ass it was talking about. Apparently it's a serpent associated with either Seth or Apophis. I'm seeing like sort of mixed things about it, but that's what it is. It's a serpent that ate a donkey.
Well, the Egyptian duat, they're like a whole like afterlife you go through to get to like it was kind of scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but I do have one question about this. What was he talking about? All the afterlife seemed similar. They all sounded completely different to me when you were reading them out.
They all had like a journey and trials that you had to get through before you could get to.
I mean, yeah, that's just better story making at that point.
I mean, that's what he was talking about.
Yeah, I mean, fair.
Ange, anything else?
No, just thank you guys for letting me be part of this.
Oh,
Yeah,
we
thank you for
appreciate it. I want
joining
to
us.
come on again sometime.
Yeah,
I
we'll
would
have to
love
get you
to.
some better audio equipment next time so that we can hear you a little bit better. But thanks for coming, definitely.
Yeah. All right. On next week's episode, we're going to have Spirit Walk Paranormal, who are ghost hunters from Morgantown, and they're going to join us to further the discussion on ghosts and paranormal. Followed by that, we will do Zach's Curiosity episode, which we will look into secret societies, specifically the Illuminati. Don't mark us, oh secret ones. And then we'll be deep diving into Carla's fiction pick, which is Out of My Mind by Sharon Draper. You can find more content from us on Facebook by searching Reading Room Ruffians Podcast, which is a group linked to our library's Facebook page, found at facebook.com/Jackson County Library WV. You can find our library on TikTok and Instagram at WVJCO Library. You can also check out our Reading Room Ruffians Goodreads, where we put the books we discuss and mention on our bookshelves. We also have all of our personal Goodreads, which we link with everything else social here in our episode descriptions. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Reading Room Ruffians. Don't forget, only the best libraries have librarians who won't shush you.